Be talking through today's what is it, Wednesday's early MLB slate, and we're going to talk about the main slate as well. For those of you playing on FanDuel, it is a 12:35 lock Eastern time, and you can play the Texas Cincinnati game. For those on DraftKings, you cannot. And we've got a 5-game slate. It is interesting, but it's not interesting. It's a little annoying. There's a little bit of weather we've got to think about, but we can go game by game and sort of figure out what we want to do here. Had a lot of fun last night. Really enjoyed the roundtable discussion and then the live sweat show that we did. And it seemed like a lot of people. A little shout out to Laddie for a big finish, and then Rich B won some tournaments. So great stuff for everybody. I love to see it, and hopefully we can keep this ball rolling. Sheets, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. So I wanted to see, as I'm doing this, if the early sheet projections made it onto the site. I hope so. I'm going to check that right now.
Goldies and Saber Sims. I don't have yours on there.
Yeah, then just PM Evan, I guess, because
yeah, I've already got him on a bunch of other things because I couldn't even get into the site this morning because my
oh really?
Well, because I got a new phone and then it changes your whole authenticator thing, so I had to change.
Okay, so they made it to the tables, so they're on the site, I guess, but they just didn't make it to Saber Sim somehow. So if you could, I'll do it as well.
Okay. Yeah. So
I'll pick it in there. Hold on a minute. It's so funny. Like stuff comes up, and then now I get distracted. I'm just on to other things, and I just kind of forget to.
I totally feel you. Yeah.
To do this. Hold on. Let me before I forget. Let me ping you.
But yeah, I'll keep going for a second. But yeah, anybody else? Again, if you guys want to have any interest in doing one of those roundtable discussions or anything like that, we want to try and do them at least once a month. So I also encourage anybody who even if you don't do them, to take a look at the video that we did yesterday, because I do think it brought up a lot of interesting points about how to construct and how, what Sheets talked about his process a little bit and ways to possibly improve Scott's. And I just thought it was a good conversation overall. Anyway. I also have, you get all this new stuff, and it was really amazing from DraftKings and everything. I spent 3.5 hours at the phone store getting my iPad and watch and phone connected and everything, and yet everything still isn't working. So it's like a great thing to have all these new little gadgets, but then it just creates like a lot of time to try to get it all set up. Anyway, I'm ready to get into the slate.
Yeah, I think the early slate's kind of like hopelessly straightforward. For me, at least, we could go game by game, or we could just cut right to the chase.
I mean, we should go game by game. I think that's probably the best way to find a way to get anything here, because it's really tricky. Just
okay. Let's see.
I think it is. I think it's. I mean, though, if you're trying to get different in baseball, and
that's the problem. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, we don't have. But I don't think the pitching is as straightforward as you think it is.
All right, very good. Let me share my screen then, and then we'll.
All right.
We'll figure that out. Let's see. Entire screen. This, and then that. Okay.
All right. So, yeah, it's Boston and Baltimore. There is a little bit of weather in this game, but it looks like it should play okay. It's kind of annoying weather. I'm just going to take a quick look at the weather update just because
give me an update, please. I didn't really factor in weather yet.
Yeah, actually, this one looks like it's actually better than the other ones, and some of the ones we have to talk about for later today. So basically, I think both these pitchers are viable. I actually think I'm going to prioritize Wells. Just sort of betting on that Boston may be a little overrated. I actually kind of like Wells anyway, and there's not a whole lot of options. I also think you could play Tanner Houck. Either one is viable. I'm more on the Wells side. And I'm more on the Baltimore side as far as hitting goes. The way you can get different though with some interesting plays here, like Tristan Cassis is 2,100 at first base. You don't need to fully stack on this slate. It's only 5 games. By the way, we saw a lot of non-full stacks win last night in a lot of the other tournaments. But Cassis is one guy who stands out as a cheap with upside. Ryan O'Hearn on Baltimore. These guys are not going to be owned, and they're very, very cheap. Using the Boston catcher Connor Wong is one way to get different if you're going to make a Boston stack, because I do think that these guys end up fairly owned, although I'm seeing now that the Boston side looks like it's being severely lower owned. And that is something I wouldn't, even though I like Wells, I wouldn't mind taking some shots there if Baltimore's really going to be this much more popular. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I have I have Wells as, I don't want to say my clear SP2, but I mean, clear enough. Clear in that he's going to be, I imagine, like really popular as well.
Yeah,
Actually, I don't know. Actually, it's not clear. Okay, so there's another guy that could have two. So Wells is kind of tied for my SP2. I have him at 25% ownership as well. I don't see any options. That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
So I have him as my current, well, one of the two SP2s I'm going to think about. And I like Baltimore. They're not my top stack, but they're, one of my top stacks.
They are a stack.
Was that?
I said that they are a stack. I'm just kidding around. Sorry.
I didn't hear you.
I said I said, but they are a stack.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I like Baltimore, and I like right now, like in my builds, I have like 40% Baltimore. But again, it's not like they're going to add up to more than 100%, right? Because you sum everything, whatever. But I got some 5-man Baltimores. I mean, I think it makes perfect sense. And I have, like I said, Wells as one of my pitchers. It seems pretty easy to me.
Yeah, I would say if the one thing I would add is if you're going to play Baltimore, I think you want to play like Mountcastle will be low owned. Urias will be low owned down at the bottom, and Ryan O'Hearn are going to be the low owned, and I guess Adam Frazier will be slightly low owned as well. But like you're gonna get 20+% probably on Mullins, probably on Rushman, and then Henderson and Santander will probably be right around 15 or 20 as well.
Yeah, I have them kind of like kind of tied for second highest owned, maybe for third highest owned today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the thing. And like when you look at the ownership, it actually I'm talking myself a lot more. I actually like Wells as the problem, but I'm going to talk myself into Boston a little bit more here, just based on ownership alone. You're still playing, in a fairly decent hitter's park. It's warm enough, 65 degrees. There's wind blowing out at 10 miles an hour, and this Boston stack, if they're totally unowned, I don't mind the idea of going to them as a pivot. Like I think I might just have to force them in, even though. Again, I'm mostly going to be on the Wells side, and with Baltimore, I just want to try and find a way to get different on this little 5-gamer, and I think that Boston is definitely an option for that. I just don't see them getting ownership, but Devers, Turner, Yoshida, Cassis, and Kike, Verdugo, all those guys are very, very solid plays that I don't think there's any reason they should be quite as low owned as they are. So I'm probably going to force in some Boston.
All right, so this next game, I'm a little confused. Well, okay, so I currently show Toronto as being the top overall stack on the board and being significantly the highest owned. I don't exactly get it. I mean, I get why Toronto. I can't imagine why Chicago isn't like clearly the highest owned team. I mean,
wow, Kikuchi never gets hit.
They're all like $2, like everybody on the team.
Maybe. I mean, well, Kikuchi's going to be. I don't think that. I think this is clearly if you're playing your cash games, I think that Kikuchi is clearly the.
Well, that's the thing, and yet on the other hand, I have Kikuchi along with Wells is kind of tied for my SP2. So
yeah.
I don't know. For me, I'm getting like all the White Sox. That's my initial build is like more White Sox, more White Sox, because that's the way all my stuff ends up. All these guys are at $2 in the top 5 of the lineup. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and they hit lefties in general better than they hit righties. I have no problem with the idea of I mean, it's just I like Kikuchi for what it's worth. Okay. I think he and Wells are similar. I actually think if you ask me to predict who's going to do better today, who would be better, I would say Kikuchi slightly over Wells. But I also think he's going to be more popular regardless of what the projections say right now. And I think the White Sox are, look, if you're not playing them, you have a bunch of cheap options. They're going to be really popular though too. I don't think they're being low owned at all.
No, not at all. I have them tied with I have them the same as Baltimore actually.
Yeah, and I think Toronto is clearly the top stack. Yes.
Yes.
I don't think it's even close. And
I agree, absolutely.
And I will probably, sadly do the thing where I have a little bit of exposure to probably everybody in the lineup in some lineup or another without getting a full stack. Just because and if you did make a full stack, I honestly don't know how you're going to get different enough. Like I guess if you use a weird pitching combination and a 3-man of like Boston or something, maybe that would work.
Right? Yeah, I mean,
but it's really hard to profitably stack the Blue Jays, I think. Yeah, I mean, it's a 5-gamer and they're going to be 25% owned. So trying to get low, and literally everyone is going to be owned on their side. They also, there is like, if they're struggling at all, they do have lefties off the bench they can always bring in. So there is a couple spots where like you might not see Espinola in there the whole game. It really depends on the score probably. But yeah, I think this is the game I'd like to target the most anyway. But again, I'm probably going to have Kikuchi and Wells as my second and third favorite pitchers. And where I'm not playing Kikuchi, I will definitely get to some White Sox. I just think they're going to be fairly popular. I don't think game stacking this is going to be viable unless you played like the White Sox at the bottom of the order, basically with the Blue Jays or something like that, which is viable. Thanks a lot, K9. Appreciate that you liked the show last night. Really glad. I think I encourage everybody to check it out. It's up there on the site right now. And it's up there on the YouTube.
You did one with K9 before?
Yeah, K9 I've done stuff with before. Yeah. So all right. So the New York Minnesota game where you really
hold on. Let's go in order. I have Colorado Cleveland next.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. What? Yeah. Okay. Colorado Cleveland is probably like the least interesting game to me. Terrible hitting weather. I do think that her Marquis, you can make an argument for him. I don't know what they're gonna. It looks just like a bullpen game, basically, with this BB. The weird part is, I mean, the Rockies' projected runs in this game is 3.2. That's low. That's like really weirdly low. Cleveland has a 4.2 projected total. I do think Marquis is viable enough, but I can't, for the life of me, talk myself into playing this game for offense, with the exception of maybe a cheap Profar, Blackman. I would want the lefties, not the righties here. Obviously, you can always play Jose Ramirez, but that would be my thinking. Is just if you're going to mix in anybody from this game, to try to get the lefties, because you do have wind blowing in. It's 48 degrees with wind blowing in from left center. Only 6 miles an hour right now. Actually, it's not terrible, but it's just with the cold, it's really ugly hitting conditions. So I am going to play lefties or nothing in this game. That's basically
I'm off this game.
Yeah. All right.
So you were going to start talking about the Yankees, Minnesota?
Yeah, another one with not pretty. It's 50 degrees in Minnesota, not ideal hitting weather, and you have two adequate pitchers. These would be the next guys I think that you'd play after the Wells, Kikuchi, and potentially even ahead of them. I think you can make an argument that Herman should be ahead of them. But Herman and Maeda, I'm kind of surprised that Maeda's ownership is going as high as it is, but the Yankees have struggled and it's not great hitting conditions. Only a 3.75 total for each team. You can see it, So I'm not very interested in these offenses. I don't mind like a piece here or there. Larnack is 3,700 batting third today. Miranda's 2,600 batting cleanup. Kepler 3,600. Volpe. All these guys are fine. I think if I had to lean, I would pick more of the Yankees. But I don't really want to go crazy here, and I just don't like this game as much. Unfortunately, I mean, neither does everybody else. So maybe we should be trying to find a way to get here. What are you doing with this one?
Yeah, so just again, my kind of like half-baked leverage score, which I have as far as stacks go, which I'll start putting it up on the side once I figure out the best way to display it. I just don't know how to do it. Is actually a team you mentioned earlier. That would be the Red Sox and also the Yankees. So I'll just kind of just leave it out there. I mean, look, and always the top leverage scores are just by definition sort of teams are not going to look that great. They'll always have some kind of deficiencies. Like the Yankees, like you said, they're the weather's kind of crappy, whatever it is. But the guys that I would be playing would be, like it wouldn't be the weaker part of the Yankees. Let's put it that way. I would try to get in, I mean, not that these guys have been great, but I mean, like Torres, Judge, Rizzo, Volpe, DeLeMay, those would be the guys I would probably play. And Frenchie Cordero, he can every once in a while do something.
I'll throw Willie Calhoun into the mix of unowned ones.
So that's where I have them. And so, like I said, if I want to play, say, Peralta with Wells or Peralta with Kikuchi, I probably won't want to play any of those good stacks that I brought up. You know what I mean? Like Toronto, White Sox, or Baltimore, right? So I'm looking for something maybe like Boston, the Yankees in builds with those two pitchers.
Yeah, and I think that like one thing you can consider, maybe you don't even necessarily need to fully stack, but like maybe you get a 3-man Yankee stack that doesn't include Aaron Judge to give a little
There you go.
You know what I mean? Something like that, just because that Judge is going to be the one guy owned in this game, I think. And I think you can make an argument for all of the individual bats for Minnesota are fine because of the pricing, but they're also not going to be owned. And I just think like trying to force in a little bit of the Yankees, a little bit of Boston with your Blue Jays, with your White Sox. We'll talk about the other game in a minute. But I think that's probably a good route to go, just because you need to try to find somehow to get different. And I really want to encourage people. I understand that if you're a full stacker, go ahead and do it. I really think that on these 5 gamers, it's just so not a necessary. Like, I understand the correlation part of it. I understand all the things we talked about last night. I just don't think it's anywhere near necessary. And I love the idea of trying to get different. So taking some one-offs, like I put Kepler and Larnack as 2 guys who I would try to get just because of the ownership and the fact that they have enough power speed. I would add Rizzo to that group. And I would add like Devers. Trying to get like guys like that. Like if I play those guys with the 4-man Blue Jays, you're better off. You have a better chance of getting away with it with 4 guys sub 10% that aren't really a part of a stack. All right. So speaking of, this is the idea that I haven't quite put into play yet. Peralta is very clearly the top pitcher on the slate. Now, the flip side of it is, I do think that like if you're not playing in lineups where you don't have Peralta, the other way to get different that I found at first that I haven't quite built out, but I was trying to find a way to do it, is to maybe play like a Detroit mini stack. I don't think I'd want to go full stack, but like McKinstry's leading off at 2,500. Matan is got some real power, and he's 2,900 batting cleanup. Baez, wild card. Carpenter has enough power. Riley Green. There's bats I don't mind here to take a shot at, maybe some home runs off of Peralta if you're not playing Peralta. But the main thing is I think that Milwaukee's going to be popular. I actually thought they were going to be a little more popular than they're looking like they're going to be. And I like Milwaukee as much as any team not named Toronto today. So I don't mind the idea of going after some Milwaukee. And also, if you're going to get weird with pitching, Lorenzen is probably the guy you would use to get weird. So that I think makes enough sense. So that's sort of where I'm at for this game is probably mostly it's on Milwaukee, but where I'm not playing Peralta, I'm going to try to get at least some one-offs, probably some 2 or 3 mans from Detroit.
Yeah, that's fair enough. All parts of that. So let's start with the fact that Peralta's the highest projected fantasy point guy on the slate, by a lot, and he's going to be 80% owned in the 555 and probably 50 or 50 plus in the maybe even more than that, like 60% plus even in the lottery. He's got the upside. He's got the matchup. He's got everything, and it's a weak slate, so he's going to be really popular. But like you said, I mean, like I've seen him get wild. I've seen him get pulled for no reason. Like I've seen all kinds of stuff happen with him. And like you said, this Matan is like the leader of the free world, man. This guy's the freaking greatest hitter of all time. I mean, this guy, like every time I turn my head, he's hitting another home run. So I guess that means I've turned my head a grand total of 4 times this year. It seems like he's got like 40 home runs. But he's got like 40.
No, but that's even good still. But it does feel like he's hit a lot more.
Right. But this like the Tigers, I feel like they're for 30-0, and meanwhile they're 7-18, right? And it's like,
right.
Boy, we can get Detroit to beat Peralta on the road. Then Milwaukee's really on the ropes as far as Survivor.
Seriously, you're almost done.
But yeah, I like it a little bit. Like I said, I don't know if I would get to a 5-man like you said, but the guys you mentioned are all really, really cheap. Matan would be my favorite just because, again, guy with 40 home runs this early in the year is somebody I respect. Mm-hmm. Then, but even what's wrong? Even Baez, I know it's righty, but whatever. I mean, he's 3,300. He could hit 2 home runs this game. It's possible.
I hope he gets 2 home runs this season. We'll see if
Yeah, I know. That's a good point. Let him make contact with the ball one time.
Sometime he will, yeah.
Then we'll worry about the home run, I suppose. But yeah, and as far as the hitting goes, listen, everybody piled on to try to attack. What's his name?
Turnbull.
Lorenzen last time, and he came out pretty
Yep.
nicely. I mean, he did very nicely. I mean, listen, only 68 pitches, but 17 fantasy points. Like, look, is he that much worse of a play than like Tyler Wells? You know what I mean? Is he that much worse of a play than Kikuchi? Milwaukee, like you said, they have some good, they have some good parts in their lineup, but it's not like top to bottom,
right?
So I don't know. I will have made worse plays than if I play him.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, for what it's worth, I actually think that so going through it, I like that idea with the Tigers. I do think if you're going to play a full stack of Toronto, you have to use someone like Lorenzen or something. And there really isn't another option of Lorenzen. I guess Marquis would be the other one because they're the only two guys who are going to be low owned, right? So
I'll tell you, man, this freaking Kikuchi play stinks. And when I say that, I don't mean like it's a bad play. It just stinks. It just smells bad for somebody. This is like one of those plays that on a 5-game slate will end up being really popular. And this will be the day that the White Sox righties just decided to take advantage of the ballpark and just freaking go off. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. For what it's worth, everything with Kikuchi looks so much better.
Yeah, it sure does.
I mean, we could be having a conversation later this year where we would look at the slate and we might think he's the best pitcher. I mean, probably Peralta's pretty good, does that pretty good stuff, but Kikuchi at times looks really, really good. It hasn't quite figured it all out yet. But maybe he's starting to. For what it's worth, I like Milwaukee better than I think Baltimore and Boston. I'm sorry, well, Boston is my force it in team, but I do like Milwaukee as sort of my more hub of a stack. You know what I mean? My more 4-mans than I probably am going to get to from Baltimore, and I just am not going to allow myself to do the full Toronto thing. So I might have a 3 or 4-man, but I'm not going to have the 5-man Toronto.
You know what? Maybe I wasn't paying attention, but when we talked about the Yankees-Minnesota game, can you just repeat, if you didn't mention it already, what you think of Herman?
Yeah, I think it's fine. I do think that he makes a ton. All these guys, all these SP2s or whatever make just about the same amount of sense to me. Herman's a little more expensive. The Twins have released a really lousy lineup today with some really, really, there should be there's plenty of upside for him here. He had 11 strikeouts. And he only faced 22 batters. The last time he faced this team, he put up 36 fantasy points. I'm actually kind of surprised he's not maybe a little more popular. So maybe, I think Herman would be the my 4 main pitchers would be Herman, Peralta, Wells, and Kikuchi. But then I like the idea of using Marquis to get a little bit different.
I also I think I wouldn't mind. And this is not something I usually do. I wouldn't mind, just because of the absence of pitching, just taking some leverage and playing either Houck against a chalky Baltimore, or even what's his name, Kopech against an uber chalky Toronto. I wouldn't mind that actually.
Yeah, I don't think Houck is going to be anything special as a low owned. I don't think he's going to be surprisingly low owned. I don't think he's much different than Wells. I mean, slightly, right?
Just because again, I think Baltimore people are going to play. I mean,
yeah, but Houck is going to get ownership though. Still,
you think?
I mean, at least I think he is. And I mean, look, Kopech, I mean, this guy's has reasonable stuff. It's just, I just don't see this going well for him today.
Yeah, it probably won't.
It's harder for me to get to that one than it is the Marquis idea. Just because I would rather target a Cleveland team that, Sheets, they haven't scored a run since we picked them in our survivor pool.
Really funny.
I really don't think they have. And the weird part is, if you look at Marquis, he basically goes out there and puts up just solid. He's been putting up solid games every time out there, except for he had one tough start against the Dodgers. Okay, big deal. Anyway, I think that would be a fun thing to do to get different. So I have to finish my build. How do we want to handle this? I guess we could probably go through the night slate. The problem I'm worried about is just getting I I did end up entering a pretty decent number of lineups today because I wanted to
Do what you want. You want to take a break? I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, I'm ready to go or ready to come back or whatever you want.
Yeah, take a quick break and then we'll come back for a main slate preview.
You know, what time?
Maybe like in 20 minutes. Is that okay?
You want okay, 12:45?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, we'll be back at 12:45 for the main slate review.
All right. Good luck, everybody. And I did post my early builds in Discord. So